commented already here in the chat, so I'll bring it up now. Bayley went on the So What Do You Want to Talk About? Or What Do You Want to Talk About? Podcast, Cody Rhodes, the pilot episode. And question came up by Cody if Bayley would like to see another women's evolution. Obviously, Bayley said that she would love that to happen. And I got the quote here too. Thank God for Fightful. Yes, why not? Like we were just saying, there's so many women. The thing about the first one is we had so many girls from NXT, which they got to showcase on a bigger stage, but they had so many women from the past. It's kind of like the first few Rumbles. They had a lot of women from the past because we didn't have enough women to fill up these matches, but now we do. I think it would be so cool to give everybody on Raw and SmackDown a part of that show. Evolution 2. You can bring in girls from NXT. We just saw Jordan Grace on NXT. NXT girls. Whatever that connection is there, we can bring different girls, and you can bring someone in from the past if they're up for it to do a little something. But we have such a stacked roster. They do. And that's why it makes sense to at least try and do another 2.
Well, and I think that I understand the argument of wanting to do it much sooner than right now or next year, whenever they might actually do it. But I think that the best time to do it is now. I think the rosters are the best. They're in better hands with Triple H because, they're not only being relegated to main event or, a few minute matches a week or only backstage segments. Like we're actually seeing more interesting stories and tons of women being featured on a weekly basis on Raw and SmackDown and NXT. There's even been NXT PLEs that 3 of the 5 matches were women's matches, and that's just like unheard of. If you talked about this like 5 years ago, it would be like, what? So I think that I would be super on board for an Evolution 2 now because of the way that the women's division is looking. And I would almost argue that it would need to be more than the Triple H general allotted 5 matches. I think that they would need to get like 7. Because I think if you're going to dedicate a pay-per-view solely to women, then you need to stack the card more than only 5. Because then that means you're only going to showcase 10 women at minimum. At
minimum.
So, but I think, you're bringing in Julia, you're bringing in Stephanie Vacour, you're bringing in allegedly Delta, Bayley even mentioned that she wants to see Candice LeRae finally have her like breakout WWE moment. We're getting to a point where people are going to want to sit down and watch a full women's pay-per-view, especially if we're going to add in these big names that are being added to NXT. So I think that the time is now for them to be like to have the most successful chance of being having a good evolution, if that makes sense. Like I think that if they did this 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't be talking about it again. You know what I mean? And it's like just because of the way that things are booked or the women that were being featured. I think now that the women are doing so well in the company, there are going to be more people who actually want to sit down and watch a women only PLE.
Want to admit this. WWE reposted the comment that we just talked about. So if they're reposting it, something is being in the works. It might not be called Evolution 2, might be called something else, but something is in the works.
Even more so if Stephanie McMahon is really a little bit more involved, because there were rumors about her kind of being around a bit more in recent months, especially around WrestleMania. So we know that she was one of the leading voices for the original Evolution. And Bayley has been saying it for years. That's a thing that it's kind of funny. Like I understand why Cody was asking the question, but I think he was asking the question knowing the answer already, because Bayley has been like the biggest advocate for women's wrestling in WWE. I mean, there's a reason why she goes to NXT shows on her days off. Like she wants to go and train with these girls or watch them. So, yeah, I would assume that it's going to happen at some point. I just don't know when, but clearly they are willing to create new pay-per-views or new names. Like, they're not being like, okay, it's October, we have to do this. It's like, no, we just found out Bad Blood is going to be in October. So like they could easily throw in Evolution, like if they wanted to, in next June, if they wanted to instead. You know what I mean?
You can make it a special, like a Peacock special. Like, it doesn't need
Or
to be like a premium live event. You could just do some sort of streaming show or TNA type of show where it's just streaming, but it's all women. You know, like, you could
it
do
could
something like
also
that.
be like the second PLE in a month, the way that they do with Saudi. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they were doing a big pay-per-view, and then they were also like 2-3 weeks later, they were doing a show in Saudi. So it's like, you could do that with the
Yeah.
Evolution too. Like, and then you don't have to worry about it having, because I assume that it's not going to be the only PLE in a month. It's going to be it's going to be an additional one. So I would assume it's going to be something like that, which I think that's fine, because I think that they're getting to a point where, yeah, people will sit there and watch it. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh yeah, let's stack the women on this card, but there's also like 3 men's matches. Like, I think they can handle
No,
an
there
all
needs to be
women's show.